All right, hello. This is Matt, and this is Caitlin, and welcome to another episode of HP for Gamers, where we are helping everyone gamers, healthcare professionals, business administrative staff, Pokemon trainers, unicycle jugglers understand how we can maximize health and performance in the world of esports. And today we're going to be chatting with our special guest about how he stays healthy and performs as his best as a pro Overwatch player. So we're going to be speaking with the main support player for LA Valiant, Scott Kennedy, or Custa. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are, curious about how pros think and behave when it comes to both their health and their performance. And just a little bit about Scott. He's someone who took the leap at the age of 21 with some bartending money to leave home in Australia to pursue this career in Overwatch. And 3 years later and a lot of shoeies later, I think he's now on the best team in the world. Just kidding.
A little biased, but
that's a little biased, right?
Kind of biased.
But no, he's now in the Overwatch League on LA Valiant, and really, he's always, I think, been seen as a leader. It was easy for me to notice your presence, both on inside and outside the game right when you joined. And I really feel like you played a pretty large part in the success of us right when you joined us. So I'm really happy to have you be here today. And, thank you for joining us before we repeat stage 4 playoffs tomorrow or finals tomorrow.
Just
right?
again.
Just again,
Go again.
Yeah, thank you so much, though. I really appreciate you
Happy to be
coming on. I guess first question, what's sort of your overall approach for health and performance, I guess, in gaming or Overwatch?
I think in general, especially like esports, professional teams are sort of like pushing towards like more balance within life. Just in general, and as like an older player at the age of 25, I'm considered a grandpa in the. I try and like work that out as much as possible in terms of just like going to the gym, eating healthy, getting the right amount of sleep. I think all of those things are like super important. I've done the grind when I was like 20, where I just like woke up, played the game, didn't go out, just like didn't work out, ate pretty bad food, and then just like played. And that's fine for a while, but like the thing I found was just it wasn't sustainable in any way. And like eventually it all catches up to you, and you see that with some of the younger players within the league, especially last season. There's a lot of young guys that are coming in playing this 40 match season that happen, and it all catches up to you eventually. So it's about finding as much balance as you can.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think you brought a lot of that, I think, maturity right when you came in from Dallas. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty noticeable for me right when you came through, how much it kind of impacted the team and I guess, yeah, your teammates around you.
I try to do that like as one of the older players, just try and like push these other guys to sort of do it as well. There are some people that are harder, Izuyaki, to sort of like motivate and push to sort of like have that health. But a lot of the younger guys, you can really see like the added benefits and effects it has on them. So it's super useful to sort of like get that in early and get that ingrained in their mind that like, hey, going to the gym, yeah, it might suck, you might have to wake early, but it's going to make you feel better like on that day and for in the future as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we're testing some stuff, and I think it's been pretty positive so far, which has been nice. But yeah, I guess moving forward, do you have any sort of meditative practices or unique routines that you do to keep yourself mentally healthy? Because I think in Overwatch League, especially last year with 40 games, that could be pretty taxing and really it can lead to burnout. I think that's like a big thing. So do you do anything, at least maybe last year or even into this year, to keep yourself minimally stressed?
I actually have it's kind of like a pseudo diary in a way that like I pretty much like to put all my thoughts down. The effect that I found of putting pen to paper with thoughts like really helped me personally. It's very easy to just sort of like I used to find that I was just frustrated about something, and I couldn't tell you what it was at the time, but like as soon as you start like thinking about it, and like I found the idea of like putting pen to paper and just like putting your thoughts into like words really helps, just as much as it would like talking to anyone about anything. So I found that was like a really self-sustainable way to like put my thoughts in. So that was like a really simple way that I found to like mentally help myself and prepare. I've told you about my ritual before, but before every match, I have an IHOP just down the street from me, and I go to IHOP either the night of, the night before if I have an early game, or the morning of if I have a game late in the day. I go to IHOP, I take my book with me, and I write in pretty much everything that I have to do in that game to win. You know, what the enemy team, like I've obviously done a lot of preparation for every match, what the enemy team's going to do, what we're going to do, all that kind of stuff, and just sort of put it all to paper. And that sort of takes everything out of your mind, that I found, and like takes a lot of that stress away from like what you're trying to accomplish, and then sort of gives you like clear goals and plans.
I love that. I think that's one of the coolest things, and it's really something that a lot of high performers actually do on a regular basis. So I think when I heard that, I was like, wow, my man. My man. When did you start doing that?
I used to, I got the book probably about like a week or two after I joined Valiant.
Oh wow!
I like, because it was sort of like a new beginnings coming from Dallas. You know, where a lot of I sort of, it was kind of like a trial run. Dallas was with like me playing, what the team dynamic is like coming in. So when I came to Valiant, it was sort of like a fresh beginning. And to me, I sort of looked at it and I was like, what are things that I can do better? What are things that I can do different than I wasn't doing before, individually and as a teammate? And this was one of those things that like just getting the book and just like writing in it every day, and then like preparing for matches. Like in Dallas, we were never like super prepared, and I always felt overwhelmed going into matches. So this sort of created a trigger of me like, how can I be more prepared every time I want to go on that stage? So that this was the best way I found.
Yeah, there's actually a term for that in tech, especially. It's called rubber ducky debugging. And the idea is that sometimes in order to solve a problem, like you really need to talk to somebody about it, but talking to someone about it often leads to them like telling you how to fix it. And like, I don't want you to fix my problem. I want to process my problem out loud at you. So in computer programming, like there became a trend of you'd put a rubber ducky on top of your monitor and like you'd explain what's going on with your code to the rubber ducky. And then you'd figure out the problem with the code as you're talking through it. So it sounds like you do a bit of rubber ducky debugging with your diary.
Yeah, that's it, right? Like it doesn't even have to be a diary. It could be anything. Like it's just the way of like formulating anything, and it can be as ridiculous as you said, as talking to a rubber ducky, because you're just like trying to put.
I use Google Docs for a similar reason, because then when I'm like out and about throughout the day and like I've got something that I want to think about later a little bit more when I've got time for it, like I can just jot down a note and it'll be there. Like,
yeah. The funniest thing I like about my book is when I first started it, there was order within the book of like, I'm going to put the date at the top, I'm going to like put my thoughts down, and then like it'll be a page long. So now it's just chaos. Like it's just like random things that I throw on the page. Like I write down like, oh yeah, this, and then I'm like, I put a little bit of like things that I want to talk about, and then I have like random goals, and it's just complete chaos, because it doesn't need to be. I've never gone back really, like maybe with some strats things. I've never gone back and read it, because that's not the point of it. It's just to put down on the book. So it's kind of weird like that.
How many times do you feel like you rehearse a lot of those thoughts? Because I feel like a big part of doing well or performing consistent in game or on stage is about running through the motions a certain amount of time, so that your thought processes are the same in this certain situation. So I'm just like curious if you think about it a lot and then you write it down. I know you say you don't go back and review, but how often do you feel like you kind of rehearse sort of some of these things that you write down?
It happens a lot. Like I had this idea. I had it like with Dallas. Is like I remember going onto the stage and I was like, I didn't play that well in practice, but if I overperform how I did in practice, or like what I thought my baseline was, then I'll do well, right? But I came to this conclusion that the best way to play and the best way to get stage ready is that if you just play your average level, if you just come out there and you just like don't think about anything, you just do it, and that is like your successful level, then like that's what you need to get everything to. Because going on the stage and sort of like almost like doing like image training of like yourself like overperforming or over exceeding expectations. I think that's unsustainable. Expecting yourself to overperform. So I come in and everything that I put in my book is just like, I'm just gonna do what I've practiced. I'm gonna go through the motions. I'm gonna do that. And if I do better than that, great. If I do worse than that, whatever. Because I know what my baseline is supposed to be and I know how I'm supposed to perform in this match.
Yeah, cool. I think a lot of other people could benefit from doing something similar, at least if they're sort of new to being on stage, because I feel like at least understanding what you're going to do and what your teammates are going to do, or what you're going to do in a certain situation and on a map, can be super helpful to just think of first, so that you don't have that stress of thinking about it, on stage.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think that's, honestly, since you told me that, I've been really happy that you told me that, because it's such a cool routine that you've been doing. But yeah, you feel like it's helped you a lot to manage at least the stress, or sort of dealing with all the things that come with being a pro player.
Well, like, it's sort of the thing that I found was the hardest to deal with being a pro player is dealing with expectations. And pretty much everything that I do is about limiting expectations and sort of like removing the idea of like expectations of like being worried that I'm going to underperform, being worried that I'm going to overperform and stuff like that. It's just like, it's about focusing on how to be the most consistent, because consistency is the thing that's going to get you through a 40-game season and that kind of stuff. Because if your mentality goes down the toilet, if you have like 2 or 3 bad games, or your team starts losing games, like that's why you see these teams like snowball out of control with like, they started losing and they just can't seem to get out of that funk. That's sort of what happened on Dallas. Like, we had talent on Dallas, we just couldn't win because people lost confidence, because people over expected for the team and that kind of stuff, and no one really did a good job of like balancing that. And so when I came to Valiant, that's like pretty much everything that I tried to do is with the players and with myself is just balancing that expectation.
Yeah, awesome. I've definitely seen your leadership in so many different ways. So, yeah, again, I love it. I guess the next.
It really sounds like you're kind of incorporating that idea of you play how you practice, you perform how you practice. Not you're not going to rise to the level of your expectations. You're going to sink to the level of your training. And so if you're consistently practicing and you're expecting that I'm going to do what I practiced, then if you do anything better, it's a bonus. And you're probably going to do exactly what you practice, because like that's what your mindset is going into it.
Yeah, for sure. And like the people that say, oh, we're a stage team, we play better on the stage. It's like, yeah, that's great until you don't play better on the stage, and then you play how you practice on the stage, and you just get crushed. So those kind of teams like don't go through the whole season having these successes. And there's definitely a few teams in the league that I've practiced against and I played against. Some that are just like in practice they're completely garbage, but on stage they play better. But then like sometimes they're just like bad, just like straight up bad on stage and stuff like that. But then you see teams. I think New York's like a really good example. Is like I feel like every time I scrim them, that's exactly how I'm going to see them on the stage. So you find that baseline of where to play, and I think that's what makes New York great. Is they're always practicing to play, and they're always they always come to play on the stage.
I like that a lot. I guess the next thing I want to talk about is, I guess, going to a different topic, but it's about nutrition, and because I feel like it's super undervalued in gaming performance, one, but also two, just your overall energy throughout the day. I know some people that I've worked with haven't really paid attention to that, and they're like, well, I get really tired at the end of my third block, or I get really tired my second block, and the number one thing I think about is, hey, are you eating enough? So, is there anything you do that's unique with your food to stay healthy or maybe even perform better?
I just find consistency is the key. You don't need to eat like salads every day. You don't need to have like the best diet in the world, especially within esports. You're dealing with a lot of people that haven't had a lot of great diets like growing up and stuff like that. So it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be sustainable. That's what I found. And like I found the consistency every morning. Like the thing that I love is Soylent. Like the little like drink to eat, ready to eat, like drink. I think that's their slogan. Like things. It's essentially like a food supplement. I love those in the morning because it always starts my morning the exact same way. If I try and cook something, some days I would have it, sometimes I would miss it because I just run out of time and that kind of stuff. So having something like that really helped me, because it means that I know what I'm getting every morning. And so with practice, I know what I'm getting in the morning, I know what I'm getting with lunch, I know what I'm getting for dinner. After that is essentially whatever I want. But at that point, you've pretty much accomplished what you need to do in the day. So in terms of eating, so I found consistency was the most important thing to me with diets and health.
Yeah, I mean, I think people don't realize that enough, that consistency is everything when it comes to food. But even planning ahead of time, right? When you have Soylent, it just makes it easier for you to have your breakfast or have your lunch or have your dinner. But for those that do some meal prep, it is essentially the same solution. You have this meal that's ready every morning if you prep on Sunday. So I think I think that's really the right way to go about it, to ensure that you have a consistent schedule with eating, so that you can handle playing for however many hours you're going to be playing. I think
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, and Soylent, I think Iziaki's now on that every morning. So you did it again, another sort of positive influence. I'm not sure if you got it from you, but
I think it's more you yelling at him every day that like, hey, you need to eat food. But I think together we're getting somewhere.
Right, exactly. Have you had any injuries at all with gaming before, or like any wrist pain or back pain or shoulder pain before?
Not really. I had some wrist pain about 2 years ago. I went and played golf one day, and I think something was wrong at some point, and I strained my wrist, and I got super worried because it wouldn't go away. It probably didn't go away for about 2 to 3 months, because it's just wrist pain. Like you injure something, but it just wouldn't go away. And I found just like continuously playing, it wouldn't go away, because I never felt it. But then like I'd finish playing and then I'd feel it. And then, so I was essentially never letting it properly heal. So what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a wrist brace that I wore like at night, so I wouldn't like mess it up at night. And also I wore it as much as I could when I was playing, and like played a little bit less until it sort of went away. So it wasn't a serious injury. Right. It's just something that it was like a really eye-opening situation of like, if I don't fix this like right away, it could turn into something worse, and like it won't go away until you actively fix it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think about wrist injuries in the same way, in that, hey, especially if you're a pro, like if you start to feel wrist pain, it really alarms you, because guess what, if you can't play with, or if you have pain and you can't use your mouse, you're not going to be able to play on stage or play in practice. But yeah, I kind of want to touch back on what you said about just like using the brace. I think fortunately it was, like you said, not a really major injury, and then resting was probably the right way to go about addressing it. And I think maybe that when you started to exercise a little more, it helped to build up some potential endurance for a lot of the muscles that you use at your wrists. That might be the one reason why it might have felt better over time. But a lot of the times people will think that they just need this brace to help them recover. And I just want to make sure people understand that, hey, yeah, it's nice to unload whatever tissue is being irritated from maybe a golf, or even for most gamers playing too much or using your wrist and hand too much. But additionally, you want to actually build up your tolerance to handle all the hours of playing that you're playing, on a regular basis. And it's about doing things like wrist exercises and adding stretches after you play that will really provide the long-term benefit. I think because you are so, you have some good physical fitness now, you're pretty protected from that. But yeah, that really is my next question, in that, how do you like make sure you stay physically healthy through these long seasons?
Yeah, that's something that I actually work directly with you with. Is just sort of like I've tried to like focus more on just like having a better like health balance in terms of making sure I'm going to the gym, making sure I'm like working out. I'm definitely doing a lot more like weights and that kind of stuff to sort of like build up my body. But for other players on the team, it's just like essentially getting them active and getting them. It doesn't even need to be heavy weights, so just lifting any weights and sort of like working with those muscles, because in my opinion, I don't know the science behind it. I'm sure you can give more feedback on that. But like if you just never use the muscles, it makes it so much easier for them to like become irritated or have problems with them. So just like having that balance within your life, it's sort of, you know, it goes back to like you have more energy, you're not going to have as many injuries, you know, you have more focus, all that kind of stuff. Like I find going to the gym at the start of the day is like one of the best ways to start your day. And like that's especially true when you're playing matches on a stage, because like it's such a stressful environment. Getting that sort of like release at the start of the day is very important.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, what I like to always say is that, or what I like to educate all the people that have injuries, or people that do have wrist pain, is that you want to think of your body as having this overheating mechanic, in that every time you move your mouse or every time you press WASD, you're gradually causing your muscles and your tendons to overheat, with the overheating representing tissue strain. And there's things that we can do to slow down how quickly it overheats, like having better posture, having better ergonomics, making sure you overall have better conditioning at your wrists. And then on the flip side, there's things that we can do to help it cool down more quickly, like stretching or ice, massage, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror, maybe something like that. But the size of the meter is represented by your muscular endurance. So that's the most important point, in that if you build up your endurance by doing these exercises regularly, like you touched on, if you don't use your muscles enough, you're not going to be able to handle, or your tissues are going to be irritated more easily. You need to build up the size of that meter so that you can play the 8 hours, you can play the 3 scrim blocks that are already stressful and might make you grip your mouse really hard, maybe during a certain scrim or certain play in the scrim. But yeah, I think that's like something really important that a lot of people need to understand, and I think inherently you understand that, which is so awesome to see.
Well, it took a while, right? It's like one of those things that, you know, I've been playing video games, especially like competitively, for the last like 3 to 4 like years, like at the professional level. So having that like long-term experience, you sort of realize the things that need to change like pretty fast. And that's why with these young kids, it's about like helping them sort of like speed up that process.
Well, yeah, I thought it's funny that you say young kids, cause
Yeah, kids these days.
yeah, I mean, you're so old. You're so
old at the ripe age of 25. You know.
Yeah, right. So I guess, do you have any other things that you do to stay healthy? I mean, it doesn't even have to be limited to exercise. Anything else that you feel like might contribute to just your overall wellness? Being an Overwatch player.
Of being an Overwatch player, something that I've like honestly tried to do more this season, at least leading into this season, is just living life more. I think last year I was so focused on just like playing, and like obviously stressful season. I just wanted to be the best that I didn't go out and have like too many good friends that I went out with. I didn't, you know, hang out with people. I didn't do all those kind of like social aspects, and you don't really realize how important they are until you go through like a 40 games season and just sort of get to the end of it. And like I feel like completely like isolated, and I've just gone through this like absolute marathon, and it's so much easier to burn out. So personally, I'm just trying to focus on having more of a social life and having more balance in that way, and sort of helping me live the longevity of this life, because, you know, I want to do this for as long as I can do this. And if I just bury myself and sort of lock myself in the room and try and just like be successful that way, it doesn't really have that longevity.
I think there's this culture, especially in the Korean culture, right, that you need to just be playing as much as possible to get better, right? And there's really this lack of balance in their life. And I think that also creates this general culture in the community where, if, you know, you want to just be playing games all the time. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's this big prevalence of things like depression, anxiety, and these other mental health issues, because they don't actively develop relationships with people that they do meet, let's say within the community, or, you know, even cultivate relationships of people that they interact with on a day-to-day basis. That's such an important part of our general health, right? Our emotional health. And yeah, I love that now. I mean, you've realized it, and you're making active steps to work on that, because that's one big step. One big thing I feel that a lot of pro players are missing, mainly because they want to win, right? And there's this concept of even in traditional sports, they think, oh, a pro basketball player is going to be always focused on training. He sleeps early, and there's those people that do that. But, the majority of even pro players, they go out. If they go to a major city in LA or major city.
You're not going to get a player up for a 7 o'clock practice if they're all out in Miami the night before. That's not happening.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, if you're in New York, of course they're going to be going out. And that's needed, and especially maybe for someone like me working with a pro player like you, I can't expect to just be like, all right, well, you better be doing every workout session because you're a pro player and you need to always be working out every second of your life, or you need to always be thinking about the game, because that's promoting this bad culture that I think in general just sports needs to realize and kind of slowly break out of. So I think it's generalized to video games too. Like, there's just this, it's so much harder when the thing that you do is something that you love doing. Like, you play video games competitively for a living, or like me, I really enjoy doing physical therapy, and like, there's this tendency to kind of disregard the extent to which the thing that you do that you enjoy is also work. Like, that is literally your job. And so, like, having to be on all the time, to be thinking that I always have to be thinking about the game, even when I'm not playing, I need to be considering how I prepare myself for playing. Yes, to some extent, you need to be aware of how the rest of your life impacts the career you have. But you absolutely need to, like, delineate your work-life balance in order to have any balance at all. Otherwise, it just all bleeds into work, and it's all somehow related to what you play. And that's not sustainable. That's not healthy. That never gives you a break from actually working.
Yeah, and I think that's sort of one of, like, very hard focus. Like, I finished last year. I had an incredibly successful year last year. I went from a bench player on an unsuccessful team to a starter on an incredibly successful team. And, like, I put in so much work, but at the end of it, the best. I'm sorry. But, like, I go from this, like, and I got to the end of the year, and I'm still, like, if you don't have that balance of your social life, because I'm a pretty social guy. I like to go out. I like to talk to people. I like to have friends. I like to have relationships. But I didn't succeed at any of those things. And a lot of things that I've been trying to focus on is, like, finding that success within that while trying to do as well as I can in professional gaming. Because if you can't find that balance, it's not worth overloading on one and then, like, losing out on another. Because if you don't have that balance, like, it's really hard to, like, look back at it and be like, I did exactly what I wanted to do with my life back then. So that's sort of what I'm trying to focus on. For better or for worse, like, as you said, Korean culture is, Koreans are obviously incredibly good at Overwatch, and they're, like, amazing players. And if that's for a deep benefit of me, that's, that it is what it is. But I think that's, like, super important as just, like, a person to do. We are professional players, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have that.
You're only 18 to 24 once.
Yeah.
I mean, the moment I graduated college, every single year since then, I've had one trip where I travel overseas with my friend every year. And my main rationale for that was like, hey, I'm only young once. My body can handle the fun that I have overseas, when I'm young. But that's kind of I don't want to draw the same parallel, but really though, these kids don't really realize that, hey, you really are young only this once. And guess what? You're in LA. You're in a really great environment that has a lot of really cool things to offer you. You're 45 minutes away from the beach, or you're literally, for most of us, we're right next to the beach. We're 45 minutes away from mountains where you can snowboard. You're 4 hours away from Vegas. It's everything that you can ask for here. But they don't take advantage of this sort of, I guess, everything that LA or even just the social life that's in front of them. And I think that's a main reason why a lot of people do get burnt out and don't realize how their main focus on the game is affecting them on a day-to-day basis. So, yeah.
Well, like, you see a lot of these, a lot of my teammates are 18 and 19, right? And I don't know about you guys, but 18 to 21 was, like, a very unique part of my life that sort of you can't really do at any other point in your life. So I kind of do feel bad for these guys that they're sort of, like, they're missing almost, like, the college part of their life is how I would, like, say it. And I'm hoping that they get to find that like later in life, but I'm also trying to like push them towards like, hey guys, you should still be looking to do these things. I understand like for these 18-year-old kids, their game is their life. They just moved away from home. They're currently living and they're just playing games all the time, right? And they want to be the best. These 18-year-old kids, they're looking at the stars, and there's so much to accomplish. But it's about sort of like being like, hey, there's a whole world out there other than this. Obviously, your goals and like going for what you want right now is amazing, but like that balance is what's going to make it so that when you get to 25, you don't feel like you missed out on life.
Absolutely, that whole 18 to 21 period is like it's a huge period of growth and personal development, and I don't know, it's really like identity forming in the sense that like you kind of get a better sense of who you are and who you want to be and what kind of things make up your identity. And if the only thing that makes up your identity is I am a pro Overwatch player, this game is my life, I mean, how much of an identity crisis are you going to be having when you reach the point where you can't play at that level anymore, or if you have an injury, or even if just you get burnt out and decide to move on? If all you've ever been in your mind is I am an Overwatch player, then not only are you going to have to deal with the loss of a job when you're no longer playing, but you're going to have to deal with a loss of a major part of who you are if you aren't developing kind of those other aspects of yourself, getting those healthy habits, getting involved in a social life, meeting people, making friends, networking. Even you're missing out on a lot, not just in terms of what you could experience, but in terms of who you could be.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree.
So everyone that's listening or watching, just go out and enjoy life. I'm not saying go party, but just go out with your friends, go do something fun, go skateboard down a parking lot structure, do something fun.
Just do something different, right? Like I think putting yourself out is the best way to sort of like do new things, especially for gamers where we're not probably the most like putting ourselves out there kind of people. Like there's a lot of amazing things that you can do, and there's a lot of people that want to do them with you as well. So just like finding that balance in your life and finding people that you like spending time with.
Absolutely.
Actually, one of the ways that I found that was really helpful, because I moved from Philly to Newark to DC to Baltimore, and like you're changing areas, and you keep some friend groups, but two of the things that I found that are really helpful for meeting and sticking with friends. Discord is great for my online friend group. Like when I didn't have internet when I first moved into this place, I was having like a small crisis because like I could not hang out in this virtual space with my friends, and that's the only way that I had to contact them in some cases. Then the other thing that I really like for actual in-person meeting up with people who share similar interests and similar ideas, there's an app called Meetup, and it's not a dating app. It's specifically an app for like just social meeting people. So like there are groups that do exercise classes or like learn to dance together. There are groups that play board games together. There are groups that like go on museum tours or go hiking or whatever else. And like if there's a thing that you like or that you want to try and see if you like, Meetup, it was really helpful for me in just finding other people who liked that same thing.
I can't like express how like important that kind of stuff is, because like I've also done the same thing. I moved from Adelaide, Australia when I was 21 and moved to Vancouver, and then like moved to Toronto, and I was in LA for a bit before that as well. Like I've been moving around, and one of the hardest things ever to do is to meet new people and meet friends and find people that with similar interests. So like those kind of things, they sound like when you go through high school, it's really easy to do, but like when you put yourselves out here and you go to a completely new place, it's really hard to find people that like you just want to hang out with. So those kind of things are very good at bridging that gap.
Yeah, it's even harder when you're an adult to make friends, because some of the research that's been done and kind of how friendships form is basically repeated non-forced exposure and enjoyment, which like when you're an adult, about the only way you can hang out with people is if you schedule time to hang out with people, because you have work and you have responsibilities and you have like things that you have to do. So you have to like really intentionally arrange all of these interactions with people. And there's just this kind of pressure of there's a time limit on how much time I get with you, and I have to convince you that I'm worth liking in this amount of time. And so like activities that give you more time to spend with people without like requiring that you precisely schedule down to the minute what you're doing is definitely easier for forming adult friendships. But yeah, it's not as easy as high school where you're kind of just all in this place and doing things together.
Yeah, you're all just around and like you slowly form those friendship groups, right? Like it's very hard to meet people that you just...
Yeah, it's so crazy to think about that actually. because I feel like I've said that so many times that, hey, by now I only kind of hang out with a few people just because it's hard to hang out with everyone. But I don't think that all the players right now on the teams kind of realize how unique this experience is with all their teammates. They get to spend so much time with them every day, and hey, they can actually do things outside of the game with them every day as well. I think it's really undervalued, and hopefully, if people listen to this, they might change it, or they might change or go out a little more, or experience LA or things outside the game a little more.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's kind of switch gears. I think we touched a lot about health, and I think we got a pretty good balance. Consistency is awesome. You got to experience things outside of the game. And I want to talk now more about performance. So I know you said you use IHOPs and your diary to prepare for a game, but do you have any other routines that you feel like have helped you get you where you are now?
In just like any form of routine.
Yeah, any routine that you feel like, hey, this might have helped my performance or helped me get to the pro level, right? And it can even be something like, oh, I do tile frenzy all the time, or even if you dial it back then to when you went to Vancouver. Are there any routines that led you to, being Custa on LA Valiant?
I think the ultimate thing goes back to like the schedule is like, it's very easy to be motivated to become a professional player, right? It's easy for that month that you decide that you wanted to be a professional player, and then it's very easy to get distracted by anything, right? Like, so here's a prime example. Right now, Apex is coming out. Everyone's playing it. It looks like an amazing game. I would love to play it, but I'm disciplined, and I know that once I play this game once, I'm going to want to keep playing it. And you're going to have to give up a lot of the things that you really want to do to like become a professional. And that's what I've given up on, is like, I've given up a lot of things that I would love to do because I can't, because I want to do this. And that still comes down to the idea of like discipline as a professional player. Like, I play Overwatch, I'm going to say on average, play Overwatch for like 6 to 8 hours a day. I would say like that's probably the minimum of like what I would say is required. And you think about that, and that's like, I could do that, but then you have to do it every day, all the time. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that you have to keep working at it. And it's not something that you can have like, I want to take a week off, or that kind of stuff. Like, someone asked me in my stream very recently, it's like, what's the longest time you've taken off Overwatch since you got here? Since the game came out. And I said, I took 2 weeks off when I went to Australia because I didn't have a computer. And that is like it. If I said if there was a computer there, I would have played, because I can't stop. Like, if I find myself in a place where I'm ever sitting down and Overwatch is nearby, I have to play. And that's like unhealthy, but it's the discipline that I needed to get here. And that's for better or for worse, that's how you get here.
Yeah, I mean, discipline is so important. I think the apex point is, a lot of people can attest to that, and that it's super easy to get distracted with a new game. I mean, everyone's talking about it, and maybe it's like still the first in terms of viewership on Twitch, maybe, but it's easy to focus on things like that versus being super disciplined, like you said, and working on how you can improve yourself. Maybe like what you've been doing stuff like Tile Frenzy, working on your aim, reviewing VODs to make sure that you get better at a specific part of the game. I think a lot of people, even in the league now, might not even have that level of discipline. And I think it's something that needs to, well, I think what you're doing will be more of a standard as the league grows, and as it gets into maybe season 3 or season 4, this will be more of a thing that people will be saying, hey, I've been disciplined, because you have to meet that level of performance by being disciplined, or else I don't think you'll be as good.
It sort of goes back to the idea that like there's a lot of people that are incredibly talented, right? And that's why they're in the league. But that doesn't mean that they're like the professionals. They do everything they need to be just successful. You see that in like the NBA and these sports that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, because there's like they've been through so many things, and everything is so diluted. Like the player base is so diluted. But right now, that's not really there. But as esports grows, it's going to be only harder and harder and harder to break in and to be the best, because there's all these kids growing up, especially with Fortnite and all that kind of stuff, growing up being like, I want to play video games professionally when I grow up. So professionalism and like having that mentality is going to be very important moving forward in esports.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily something you're born with too, that discipline. You might be born with some degree of talent, but the discipline to stick with it, and to kind of cultivate all those aspects around just being good at gaming, the healthy habits, recognizing how consistency works for you. Like, none of that comes overnight either. How long did it take for those behaviors to become a consistent thing? How long did it take to develop that discipline?
I think it was a lot easier for me, seeing as I moved from Australia to Vancouver. I moved to do this, so that's like a constant reminder of this is what I've done, and I'm gonna stick with it. So when I it's kind of like the concept of like burning the boats, right? Where you go, there's no way back. Yeah, I couldn't go back at this point. What was I going to do? Just like do nothing in Vancouver and just like waste my time and my money that I decided to do for this thing? Like, no, there was no way back. So I think that was a really easy way to build discipline, is like, when my friend comes up to me and he's like, hey, let's go out. And I'm like, no, man, I got to play. Like, obviously I love going out, and I did that plenty. At some point you got to be like, no, as much as I'd love to go play this other game, as much as I'd love to go out, as much as I'd love to go on this like 1 week trip with you here, I can't justify it. And that's like the hardest thing to do, as I said, is giving up the things that you really want to do for the things that you should do. And that goes back to playing video games, going out, going on trips. Like, you can't just go on these like crazy long holidays. I would love to go traveling right now. Like, it's one of my favorite things to do, but even in the off season, I don't have time. So it's sort of one of those major things that you have to give up.
I think being as professional as you are, you're going to have a long career. You're going to be on silver sneakers. It's going to be a new Overwatch team.
Yeah. Well, like, honestly, for me, I just want to be in esports. Like, I want to play for as long as I can play in whatever games I can play. But the whole thing for me is like building as much of a resume to me that I can move into whatever I want to move to in the future. I want to help esports get to where I think esports can be. And, obviously playing and having experience in that passion is like super important.
Awesome. I mean, it has a long way to go, but I think you're already exhibiting a lot of the habits and behaviors that, we'll see 3 or 4 years from now, right? When everyone's wearing suits coming out of the bus onto
coming out of the bus on suits. We're crossing our fingers, it's coming.
Right. Yeah, I guess kind of a few final questions. Are you doing anything else to improve yourself as a player? I did mention, the Tile Frenzy stuff, but I don't know, maybe you can elaborate a little more on some of the things you do to improve yourself in game.
You go through these different, like, you focus on different things at different times in your life. Like in your career right now, like, I'm focusing mainly on my mechanics of like playing the game. I'm like by far not the best mechanical player within the league. But like, it's something that like I'm really trying to work on. And if you saw me 3 years ago, my mechanics, they were complete garbage. So it's something that you just have to consistently work on. Like right now, I'm doing Kovacs, Tile Frenzy, FPS trainer. Like, I do Tile Frenzy, so it's essentially just like every day I wake up, it's the first thing that I do once I get to like the practice facility is like warming up my aim. And it's about just like setting a standard for you dudes. And like, I've been showing Matt my progress as I've been going over the last like few weeks of just like consistently improving and setting that baseline. And that's the important thing of like that I said, not overperforming, underperforming. I'm setting a baseline for where my aim should be. And so it will always be there. And that's what I'm trying to do by consistently doing it every day. That like, this is my record in this game right now, but I can easily get to this level every day. And then it's about making that average, that mean of like where you're playing at, higher and higher and higher every day. So my aim is getting progressively higher. My aim's not gonna get amazing in 3 months, but it's about like continuously working at it and just like slowly making it better. Because like, especially in video games, there's no instant gratification of just like, I am this much better right now. Like, it's just working on everything very slowly and getting there. And like, aim trainers are a great way to do that. Like, reviewing your own gameplay is a great way to do that. And just like focusing on like self-improvement is like one of the best ways to get to the professional level, because anyone can sit down and play video games for 12 hours. But if you sit down and do 6 hours of smart improvement, it's a lot more valuable than just bashing your head against the wall for 12 hours.
Absolutely. All right, working smart versus working hard. I think that's
Absolutely.
really undervalued in gaming, especially. I mean, I try to work on my mechanics when I'm to improve myself in games, and obviously I'm not at the highest level, but in the same way, I try to be intentful with everything that I'm doing, and I think it shows for you. Yeah, with what you've been doing with Kovacs, I've seen it improve pretty drastically over time, which is so cool to see. But I think something that's even more unique or important to say that's underlying that is that Kovacs is a way to give you a metric to see where you're at, to give you a metric to see where your baseline is in what you're saying. And people can do the same thing if they determine a metric for their performance. Let's say when they're reviewing a VOD, they can identify a specific thing that they want to work on, and then work at that specific skill, or work that specific type of in-game mechanic, whether it be positioning or ult tracking, things like that. That can be worked on if you create a metric for it. So Kovacs is obviously something that's really easy, but it would be really cool if there's specific ways that we can train ult tracking or positioning aside from just going to a scrim block thinking about it. I'm sure.
Yeah, like the eye test, right?
Right.
That it goes like the metric, as you said, is like super important. It'd be easy, like if a Kovacs was there, but it didn't have like a scoreboard, right, or a leaderboard for that matter. You could play that thing for 2 hours every day and stay at the exact same level, but because there's a metric, you can like actually see that you're doing better this day, or you're doing worse this day, or you're doing this day. And like I've actually been able to find consistency in what makes me aim better. Like when I first start playing, if I don't have my coffee, I will shoot slower by like a very small margin, but it is like very significant and very obvious. And then like if I have like too much coffee, or if like I know if I play later when I'm towards the end of the day, like I will miss more. So like you can see how you react and how you play in certain situations, which is actually really interesting. And that's something that I've been like kind of looking at since I've been doing this.
Yeah, it can really guide your decisions in how you prepare or how you warm up, right? Because the only way that you know that is by having a metric to compare yourself before and after. And that's something that can be applied to literally everything in life. The structure of testing. Hey, do I want to improve my strength for squats? Well, guess what? I'm going to see what my 1 rep max is. 6 weeks from now, I'm going to test it again. It's really the same thing for everything. As long as you have something you're working toward or have a metric, you can track how you're doing in it. And that's where research and evidence comes in, at least in esports, where maybe we can define something in the future that will help us, work on positioning. But I think that's something that is kind of cool, that will be explored in esports in the next couple of years. There's going to be a lot of really awesome tech that's going to allow us to see this stuff.
It's also super addicting. Like it's sort of like the gym kind of like idea of like, how once someone starts going to the gym and they actually start like actively trying to get their numbers up and they actually start like counting all their calories, you can see a metric of everything that you're doing, and it's addicting and you want to keep improving. But if you just go to the gym for 3 times a week for like 2 months and don't track anything and just like throw random weights on and do random things, you're not going to care. You can't see the improvement. And it's this exact same thing in esports and that kind of stuff. If you can put a metric, if you can put a number on like your improvement, it's so much more valuable. And that's why like ranked systems in video games exist.
Exactly.
Because I can see my SR going up. Yep. I am technically getting better because I have a high SR. And like I can see myself going down. And that's when people get frustrated and stuff like that. So it's about like recognizing those metrics and using them to your advantage and using them to push you.
Yep. I mean, I think that's a really good place to end with sort of all of the formal questions that we had. Now I want to kind of get into some more unique ones. Okay, do you want to start with some some questions?
Yeah, I can start with mine. This is stuff that's peripherally related to what you do, more just like fun stuff to wrap up an episode.
Okay.
So if you weren't a pro gamer, if this wasn't what you're doing, what would your dream job?
So I was originally studying to be a civil and structural engineer, and I can say with 100% confidence that is not my dream job. So,
So not that.
not that. Oh man, that's a tough one. Like if I could do anything in the world,
Yep.
Like a
you
couch
were
potato.
fantastically talented at it. You had the discipline to do it. What would you do?
oof, that's a tough one.
Yo-yo master, painter.
Yo-yo master. Man, you're putting me. I honestly like you say like without being in esports. The thing that I've always wanted to be since I was 18 is I've wanted to be a player in esports, and that's like why I think it's hard to answer this question because like I've never really thought about this because this was my goal. Like this has been my goal my whole life. So this is and that's like why I'm here. I don't know. I think it'd be cool to be a doctor as well if that sort of helps answer the question. So
That was the perfect gaming answer we could ever ask for. Nice. I dreamt to be a gamer, and you are now.
yeah, exactly.
You're the best. You're the best. So I know you were a bartender before, right?
I was a bartender.
And I think as promised for Doug, I want to ask what was your favorite drink to make as a bartender?
The biggest problem with that is like, so I was a bartender, but I was at a bartender at like a small pub, in my thing. So it was a lot of beer and wine, and like they weren't. I didn't make a ton. My favorite, like drink to drink is like super simple. I just like Moscow mules. I can drink those things fucking under the sun. I also love a Long Island iced tea. It's a one-way ticket to going to having a good time. So those are my two main ones. But
Definitely. It is a one-way ticket, yeah. That and AMF.
3 of those in one night once. That was interesting.
Woo. Whoa, 3 of them?
Oh,
What kind of night was that?
That was a night.
I haven't ever told you about my one St. Patrick's Day, have I?
So moving on, what is your random tip, in life for anyone, any gamer actually listening to this podcast or watching this? And it doesn't have to be limited to like health or performance. Just anything can be super random. Like, hey, if you separate your egg yolks or whites from your egg yolks, you can make fluffy waffles. Or, if you tighten your bolts.
So it's just like anything.
Anything you want. Give him a tip.
Oh, that's it. Alright, here's my tip to life. Okay, you're a gamer. I have found that the best way to feel good and go for long times of like playing video games is to have a jug of water next to you at all times. Like a full jug of water, because I will not drink water, but if it's there, I will drink it all day. But the hardest thing is having it there. So that is my tip for life. And that's like, it doesn't even need to be for gaming or anything. Like just having water readily available at any time, like made me feel so much better in my day.
You have a big jug, like those 5-gallon ones? Oh, just your Brita filter. You just straight up drink it like this? You just Uh-oh, your mic's cut off.
Did we lose audio?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there.
There we go.
I pushed short. It's the first thing that I do every day before I sit down at my computer is I refill my Brita filter. And at the campus, it's the first thing I do. I get my coffee and I fill my big.
Nice. I have the same Brita filter, so
I do the same thing at work. Like if I don't have my water bottle next to me, I'm not gonna remember to drink water.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get to the end of the day, I'm like, God, why am I so thirsty? And they're like, oh yeah, right. No water near.
Oh man. Yeah, I have one more of these questions, and then I think Kate has one. But what is something that you believe that other people think is insane? Is it the swinging trunks thing?
Well, that's more of a personal preference thing. We can go into this if we really want.
No. We'll get to the question. What is that one thing?
Man, that's a tough one. Like something that I just like. I'm not a.
Like any superstitions?
No, like I'm.
Theories you buy into?
Like I actually do think there is like some form of like ghost kind of thing. I think there's way too many. I've heard way too many stories and seen way too many things about like extraterrestrial things like happening. That I think there is some form of like thing. I don't think it's in anything that we understand or like can actually rationalize, but I think there's something that we don't understand that like causes all these like spooky things that people always.
I 100% believe in ghosts. 100%.
In ghosts, like I've heard some like freaky shit like from people that I trust and stuff like that. And there's too many stories.
Exactly.
That's sort of like what I mean. There's too many stories of like weird stuff happening that everyone can't be crazy, right?
Exactly.
There's going to be a common factor.
Yep. I have a really crazy story, and might as well just tell it right now.
Go for it.
So,
Just throw it out there.
so I had this friend in college. I lived with her, and she told me about this time that she went to Japan, and she went and stayed at this cabin somewhere in the mountains of Japan. I forget the actual city, but she went with her family, and they rented out this cabin, and they stayed there overnight. And she said at exactly midnight, she had this nightmare where she was standing in the room, and she watched a daughter basically murder her mother. Watched it in the room, okay? And she woke up in full sweats, and she was like, holy shit, that was the craziest dream. It was 12 a.m. exactly. She got up and she went to get some water. Everyone else in the house was awake and had this exact same dream. And
Wow.
I was like, I straight up was like, okay, I'm out. Bye, guys.
Too much.
This is too much. And I was like, where in Japan? I'm never going there.
Imagine that was you in the cabin, right? And everyone in the room just woke up to the exact same dream. I would be out. There's no way I'd sleep in that.
Yeah.
That's
I think I was so freaked out that I don't even know what happened after that. I was like, I literally blacked out. I was so scared. So I think that might be proof. She might have made that up, but it convinced me.
That's the thing is, like, there's so many people that tell these, like, weird stories, especially about ghosts, right? Like, they have this stuff. And, like, if it was just, like, a few people, then sure. But there's, like, so many, like, normal, rational people that have these experiences and tell these stories that I'm like, there has to be something going on.
Mm-hmm.
We
So
just don't know what it is.
there's a bit of something that I know from neuroscience and from my bit of background in genetics. One, there is actually a genetic tendency towards belief in a supernatural. It's commonly nicknamed the God gene, but it kind of applies to just your ability to accept or to be inclined to accept that there are things beyond your understanding which you would ascribe to supernatural existence. So like you see that with like organized religion, but also with like things like spirituality and things like believing in extraterrestrials and ghosts and poltergeists and myths and legends and all that. So there are like definitely people who are more predisposed to accept supernatural explanations for certain things or to assume a supernatural explanation. The other thing too is, if I learned anything in my time in neuroscience, which was I have a bachelor's degree in neuroscience, is that we understand really, really little about the human brain and all the weird and random things that can totally happen with it. So I'm slightly less convinced that the answer is ghosts and more convinced that the answer is brains are friggin' weird, man. It could be both.
True.
Definitely could be both.
Exactly, right?
It could be ghosts and in the brain.
Oh god.
Oh, yeah.
I
know.
don't know.
Calm down.
Ghost in the Shell, there's an anime about that.
Okay, yeah. Too much anime. My bad. My bad.
Man, now my questions seem a little more boring now, but all right. If you had to give up one of your senses, what would it be?
All right, what are all my senses? I need a quick list.
So we're going with the classic ones of
Like touch, feel, yeah.
sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, not including things like proprioception.
I'd give up taste.
Taste.
What?
I think touch and hearing are like way too important. What are the other ones?
Sight, smell, and taste.
Smell is super important. In my opinion, like being able to smell, and sight is obviously super important. Like I could get away with life without being able to taste anything.
Ooh,
Food would suck.
man.
It'd make eating really healthy, really easy as well.
I guess that's true. It's all you know is consistency.
Yeah, exactly.
That
Right.
would be.
You just make literally everything into a smoothie, and it would
Yeah, I would just
nothingness.
blend it up. Doesn't matter.
Why is Scott making that into a smoothie? Those are staples.
It will taste disgusting.
Those are staples,
Nah,
Scott.
it's all right.
I can't taste. Oh my god. Okay. Maybe I might choose taste or smell. Maybe smell. That would be.
Smell
One
is
of my
the other
coworkers
one.
Actually, she has no sense of smell. It's called I don't actually remember what it's called, but she had a really bad concussion, and she has no sense of smell. And the thing is, if you lose your sense of smell, that also takes out a large amount of your sense of taste.
Yeah.
So like, good call on not giving up smell, because then you would also not be able to taste things most likely.
See, I got it. Take that test.
Good job. Very nice. You passed.
Yeah.
All right. Last question for the night. If you could have any Overwatch hero's abilities, who would it be and why?
Oh,
like
I've been asked this question before, and like it took me like it's so hard to think of, but it's almost 100% of the time Tracer's rewind, right? Like being able to go 5 seconds backwards is definitely like probably the best thing that you can have.
That's true.
It would also help if it made the world go back 5 seconds. Imagine if you could like say something really stupid and then go back 5 seconds.
Just for fun.
Just for fun.
Fix it.
Yeah, or just like. You just like punch someone and then you rewind and then you're just like.
So that's what you're saying you would do. So if you had that ability, you'd be like, yeah, I'll punch this guy.
Well,
no repercussions.
You would be able to act reactively and do stupid stuff as long as you had a 5 second window to do it.
Oh, great. Well, what would be the lamest
one? I feel
one?
like I definitely have to go with something either Mercy or Lucio, just because it's too on brand not to.
Yeah. Being able to like amp it up and just like heal everyone around you, or like make everyone move really fast. That'd be a good party trick at least.
What about Mei, guys? You don't want to be able to turn into a rock and just hang out? You don't want to just be an ice block?
Or just like have an ice wall that you can throw up at any random time. Just like ice wall.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be pretty cool.
That's like really situationally helpful. But like,
actually, not really. That might be the lamest real life skill. That might be the lamest one.
There's got to be some worse ones than that.
I feel like being a parent, having Anna's sleep darts would be great.
That would help.
True.
That'd be nice. Yeah, just like shoot you. Like, this is problem solved. Now I'm going to bed.
Yeah, having Konzo's skills would be really cool, though. You know, just you can see through walls. You can
Do I inherently have the ability to shoot a bow and arrows?
Yeah,
really
of course.
All right. Well,
you just automatically gain the skill. Yeah.
That's +5 to bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Favorite weapon.
Yeah. So Tracer's is a good one. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, thank you again. We got a lot of good answers, especially on the end there. Those were great. Ghosts are real. Just want to reiterate that. Yeah, don't go to whatever part of Japan that was, and don't have the same dream. But let's just review. We talked a lot about health. We talked a lot about performance. I think a big theme, at least for you, was being consistent, making sure you prepare enough through all the things that you do on a regular basis, whether it be having water or having your Soylent in the fridge or Soylent stock ready. But just being consistent with all these behaviors around health and performance are what got you to where you are now, and also just taking that big leap. Your case is pretty awesome, or your story is pretty awesome in itself, and that I think you were in a engineering test or something. you just like, it's fine, 0 out of 100, I'm out.
I literally I think I got like, it was a test for like one of the subjects that I wasn't doing that hard in, and I remember like there's only 5 questions in this math test, and they're all like really long and really hard. And I didn't know how to start 4 of them. And the one that I did know how to start, I got halfway through and I'm like, this isn't right. So I was like, this is a problem. So I spent the whole time thinking about like, maybe I should just drop out and like pursue playing video games, because Overwatch was just starting to come out. And I was like, you know what? If I'm ever going to do it, now's here. The funny like side part to that is like they ended up redoing the test after it was done, because the test was way too hard. Because like 70% of the class failed.
That's a good rationale.
So really, I didn't fail the test. That's how I keep myself.
You just want to make sure. Okay.
Yeah.
You make sure everyone knows that. Hopefully, no one just listens to only that part and just like in a college class and they're just like, all right, I'm out. Custa said so. But yeah.
Great idea.
Anyways, thank you again. I'm gonna end it now.